Hey there, everybody. Welcome back with the Plat. Today, we are talking about what I think is the strongest character in the game. And no, it is not our boy Dan here. It is that 5-star character, unfortunately, but I figured if anyone got lucky enough to pull this character, I assume everyone's using their 5 stars, but the character that I think is genuinely the strongest character in the entire game right now. Admittedly, I don't have all the characters, right? You can see all my characters up here. I don't have them all, but I'm going to give you my reason here. That is going to be Branya. Branya to me seems like an S plus tier character, easily the most chaseable character in the game so far for a couple reasons. But let's go ahead and jump into exactly why and kind of what I recommend for building her. It's going to be a light build, right? I'm still working on a lot of like all this stuff, but she has one core thing that I think makes her irreplaceable in the current version of the game. Maybe they'll add better supports in the future. Um, but she is primarily a support character that focuses on buffing allies. Now, why these types of characters are usually more bang for your buck than other characters. Not always, but typically if a character has a very unique and powerful support ability, that makes them more irreplaceable as opposed to a character that does big damage numbers. Because typically, as the game goes on, they're going to release more and more characters that deal bigger damage numbers because there's going to be power creep. Maybe they'll buff old characters, things like that. But typically, a new character will get bigger damage. So, damage characters, even though they're important, you need to get them every now and then. They typically don't have the shelf life of a really powerful support. And Branya here has some ridiculous ability. So let's take a look. Basic attack doesn't do anything, right? But she actually does have a talent here that directly affects her basic attack. When she uses her basic attack, it advances her forward. So this is actually really good because this is something that I have on my Bailu, but I have to have it in her light cone. She has this built into her kit, so that's pretty good already. I'm hitting all the wrong buttons here. So whenever she uses her attack, because she has nothing better to do, she will actually move forward, so she's more likely she'll act again faster, which is important because her speed's actually pretty low, which is a good thing on this character. So she is already pretty decent actually at generating extra skill points for the rest of your team. I actually, this whole thing being able, having a character that can use basic attacks to get your other character's skills ready to use is important, especially because this character is also pretty skill point hungry in other situations. So basic attack doesn't do anything, right? But this is probably the best skill in the game right here. Dispels a debuff from a single ally. That is a cherry on top. That is really good. But then it allows them to immediately take an action. So this progresses any target allies gauge 100%. Basically, they get to go immediately after her, and it increases their damage by 39%. If this didn't dispel a debuff and it didn't increase their damage, this would still be one of the better abilities in the game. When she used it on herself, she cannot immediately take action again. That is fine. I don't know that maybe that's exploitable. If she could, it wouldn't. I don't think it would be that good on average. That's not normally what you're going to do. And then finally, her ultimate here, increase the attack of all allies 37% and their crit damage. The crit damage is actually interesting because it's their crit damage by up to 12% of her crit plus a flat 13.6%. So they get a little bit of her crit damage, which you could then you could build her crit damage. I don't know if you're only going to be getting 12 to 20% of her crit damage. Maybe it's not that important, but she's also not doing that much damage. So building a bunch of crit damage on her is probably pretty reasonable as well, just to increase it on other characters. So this ability is pretty good. I mean, obviously it's a huge amount of attack, and crit damage is always good, but why is this skill so good? So this kind of lets Branya be the reason why I consider her to be irreplaceable and incredibly overpowered is this allows her to be a copy and almost essentially of any other character on your team, your strongest character. So let's say you're fighting something, and even if they're not wind weak, right? Let's say that they have a fire weakness, right? You want Asta, maybe Asta is your best fire breaker, fire damage dealer. You know, maybe Hook would be a better example because she's like a better damage dealer. And so it's like, all right, you know what? You don't have, maybe your account doesn't have that many fire things right now because I don't. I only have Asta, Hook, and the protagonist. And so maybe it's like, all right, Hook is the best character on my team. My team would be better if I had 2 Hooks on my team, but I can't run 2 Hooks. But what you can do is you can run Hook and can run Bronya. And so what happens is after Hook goes, Bronya comes up, and she could basically use a skill point to replace her turn. She doesn't replace it, but she spends her entire turn to make Hook be able to go again right away. So you're kind of getting to go get 2 hooks on your team in a sense. It's still going to be this one character attacking the whole time, but she gets to take her turns and replace them with the most useful character on your team. And if there is a situation where you don't want anyone to go immediately, then she could still basic attack to build skill points. She could still do the AoE buff, which doesn't even take her turn, to make everyone stronger. So it's just like, and this skill is like, hey, get the strongest character on your team again. So she's kind of like a ditto, you know, in a lot of ways. So one of the reasons why I said I think her speed being low is good, right? She has 99 speed compared to, I mean, his is even lower. Most characters have right around 100, right? Like, I'll have some characters with higher based off their equipment or whatever, but most characters are going to fall around that 100 mark. And so hers being actually typically on your team, you're going to want her to be the slowest character, in my opinion. Because well, maybe not necessarily, but you whatever character you're trying to duplicate, you want her speed to be like 1 point lower than that character. So let's say I really want her to duplicate Serval in a fight. I always want to call her Several. You want her to be at 103 speed, ideally, right? You want her to always go right after. So because if Bronya goes before a character, like let's say Bronya goes first and you want her to replace Serval, and then you can't have her replace her turn, right? Because she's just going to move it up. If she was already going to go next, she's already going to go next. It doesn't really do anything besides give you the damage. But if you are 1 speed slower and Serval goes, right? And then she has a full turn timer to go, Bronya comes up right next. You can now have her take 2 turns in a row instead, which is really, really powerful. So her having a slightly lower speed is actually a good thing, but you're going to want to manipulate her speed to be a little bit, ideally, literally 1 point lower than whoever you want her to replace. But for the most part, as long as you have her slightly slower than the character you want her to replace, that'll work just fine as well. So my favorite so far, there's lots of light cones that I don't have, and I'm sure there's lots of good light cones. But right now, my favorite light cone has been Harmony, because it kind of doubles up on exactly what she does. Harmony is a 4-star light cone, but when the wearer uses their ultimate, all allies' actions are advanced forward 16%. So this makes her ultimate also do kind of an AoE. So it gives everyone attack damage, it gives everyone crit damage, and then it also pushes them all forward. So it kind of gives her like a weaker version of her skill to everybody for completely free. So instead of being a 100% increase, it's only 16%, and this will go up as I get more of these, right? Actually, what does it go up to if we went to max level? Can I take a look? I don't know. Maybe I can't take a look from here. I don't think I can, but it probably goes up to like 20%, right? But that basically makes it so if you time this right, you could, like, if there's enemies and they're about to like, you know, you break an enemy and they're about to recover, you could sometimes move your whole party to get an additional turn with increased damage on them as well. So just incredibly powerful. But overall, the reason why I think Bronya is so insanely powerful is this skill. If you have her, I'm happy for you. You got lucky just like I did. Make sure you are building her 100%. But here's the thing. She's also, in my opinion, a relatively low investment unit. You are going to want to keep leveling her up and keeping her stats up. But because she's there primarily, not as a damage dealer, but as a support to be kind of a copy of your best damage dealer, you don't need to get all the best relics, all the best light cones. You don't need to get all these things. Like, you don't need to level up all of these things a lot. You can, like, you could do it all, but like as it gets harder and harder, you don't need to focus all that on her, because what you're going to want to put it primarily on, you know, whatever's carrying you forward, maybe your healers and damage dealers. But she'll always be there as long as she doesn't just have like super, super low HP and die, to just kind of replace, to be her second best damage dealer, you know, in general. But that's all for today. Actually, one thing worth mentioning also, I think probably her best duplicate skill is probably level 2 here. When using your skill, the target's ally speed increases by 30% after taking action. That is so fucking good. Your ally, after you give them an instant turn, they then get 30% speed after that turn. So they are going to pass Bronya again. So even though they took a turn, Bronya, and then they took a Bronya kind of gave them a turn, they're going to go again before Bronya, and then she's going to take a turn. And so you're going to be able to keep stacking this up. So Quick March is insane. All of them are good, But once you get up to your second dupe, I think that one's going to be kind of super insane. That's a huge power spike. But yeah, I think Bronya is the best character in the game. If you guys have other characters that you think are better, let me know why. But again, just because a character is the highest damage dealer in the game, that might make them better at that role. But I think she is better because she fits on literally every team in the game. She is incredibly powerful and unique in what she does. And also, I think she has an incredibly long shelf life in the sense that I think the chances of her being power crept where her skill is just not that good, I think is incredibly unlikely for a long time. But anyway, Bronya, thank you for your service. I'm very happy to have you on my squad. That's all for today. Purplatypus is Purplatypus. I will see you in the next video. Peace.